Hey guys, I am just getting ready to make a batch, and I wanted to actually walk you through some of this more than I have. I have made a video of me making these bas relief soaps. However, I have not given exact detail. I don't give out my exact recipe because I honestly think that everybody has a different preference. It's like saying, how much cream do you want in your coffee? Well, you kind of have to pour that yourself, right? So this is one of those instances where I'm just going to give you some pointers, some tips, and let you decide what you prefer. My recipe has 65% hard oils, fats, and butters. In order to get this particular design in one batch, in one go, I have found that works best. You can do it in, say, a Castile soap, but you would probably want to break it up to do the bas relief part, this white portion where it would be the detail. You'd want to pour that in one pour and do the base pour for the rest of the bar in a different pour, because you're just going to have a really hard time getting this to set up quickly enough. Because if you pour the base on top of this white, like, okay, you put the white on there, you scrape it off, and then you pour over with a different color. If you pour that too soon, this white portion is not set up and it'll all muddle. And yes, you'll still get the design, it just won't be as striking and as vivid and as crisp. So if you're gonna go the route of Castile soaps or something with more liquid oils, that's what I would recommend, is doing it in 2 pours instead of 1. 2 batches, a very small batch and then a larger batch for your base. I'm gonna check my temps. 97 and 85. I'm gonna go for it. And I always strain out my lye solution. I did add a teaspoon of sodium lactate to my lye solution. I also added 2 teaspoons of granulated sugar. I stirred it really well. I blended it. There's some lye lint on the top of that. You can probably see that. I did a severe discount, meaning I have 146 grams of lye and I have 150 grams or milliliters of water. So it's almost a 1-to-1 ratio. That will help with it setting up, as well as the hardness of the bar, and soda ash. It'll help reduce soda ash. So I'm not going to put any colorants or fragrances in. It's just the lye and the oils. I'm going to blend this up to a very light trace, or just to emulsion. We'll see what we get. I'm going to stop there. So I do have the standard loaf molds that you get from Walmart, or not Walmart, Amazon. Meh. Amazon! These bad boys right here. The ones that most beginners start with. I have 2 of these. I'm going to use these 2. If you have these mats, 3 of them will work in 1 loaf mold. So I do a batch that's large enough for 2. That, for me, is 36 ounces of oil. So if you're doing your soap calculator, you type in the lye solution, like what's the concentration, your water amount, all of the percentages of oils you're going to use, but then you choose at the very top, kind of on the left-hand side, you choose how much oil your batch is going to be. And for this, it's 36. It makes very large bars. My fragrance oil. Here is my white portion that's going to be for my bas relief. The actual detailed design this portion here, not for the base, but this portion here. I'm going to put just a tiny little bit of fragrance oil in there, because if I don't, it's going to set up at a different rate than the base. And I want this to set up good and hard first before pouring my base in. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pour just a little bit. I'm not even measuring this. Famous last words, right? I'm not measuring this, but you don't need much. Probably an ounce or two. Maybe that's a little more, I don't know. But no, you really don't need more unless you're doing a huge amount of the base relief mats or molds. So I just take my mini whisk, and I want to blend that in really well. And now I'm looking for more of a medium trace for this. And you may need to set this aside for a little bit, just depending on what fragrances you're using. You may need to set it aside for a little bit. You don't want it to get too solid, because if you do, there's no way you're going to be able to get that into all the nooks and crannies. Okay. So since I have 6 to do, I'm actually going to start filling those little mats up, but I'm also going to pour this into here. This is my base color. Now, my fragrance oil does discolor. It has about 3% vanillin, so it is going to discolor, but I'm okay with that. I really am going for kind of a vintage look. So if I have some brown spots, whatever, it really shouldn't be bad because this is quite a vivid hue. I have worked with high percent of vanillin in my soaps before and have gotten it to work. There are things you can do. If you want a bright, vivid color, you can add some neon, add some titanium dioxide. But it kind of just comes with time and learning. Vanilla stabilizers, I found, don't work as well as you'd think they would. Okay, so this is setting up real nice. And I want to show you this too. This is a spatula. It's a Wilton spatula, so it is used for baking and stuff. It's silicone. I got this at Joann's. This has been ideal in my soap making journey for so many different reasons, but for these base relief designs, it works perfectly. And this, yeah, I'm gonna just go ahead. So I'm just going to move this. And the scent that I am using today is a mix. I custom blended it. It is 3 Wise Men from Nurture Soap. That was a customer request. And also chocolate from the Midwest Fragrance Company. It's just such a beautiful, beautiful blend of scents. I never would have thought, but I was like, I kind of wanted to cut down on the spice from the 3 Wise Men, and the chocolate adds a really nice richness that's not overwhelming. It's just really, really nice. So I loaded it up. I want to make sure all of those little indentations have at least some of this white, and it does not have to be perfect, because this particular design, I don't know if it's rustic. I wouldn't call it rustic necessarily, but perfection is not what I'm aiming for. I am not aiming for perfection in this. All right, so here is the little manger with the star. And you can see it's not a fluid consistency, but it's not so thick that I can't actually work with it either. It's perfect for putting into these little, see those little bubbles, kind of where the air pockets were, you kind of squish that in and make sure you get all of the little nooks and crannies, or as much as you can. And then hopefully you can see this. You can kind of see it. I'm just placing these in. They are kissing, these mats are just kissing each other. They're not squished up. You don't want one to be overlapping the other one or bulging or bubbling in any way, or the design is just, it's going to be affected. So these molds, these standard molds, fit 3 of these perfectly long ways. You do need to cut these by hand unless you have an individual soap cutter. I have 2 multi-bar cutters, and I have like a crinkle cutter, all of that, but I don't actually have a single wire cutter or a cheese cutter. I used to have that. That's actually what I started off with before I upgraded. And the funny story with that is I got such junky equipment when I was first starting off, because I've tried so many different hobbies and just, I want to try it as a hobby, you know? Like, I wanted with the soap to know that I was actually going to stick with it and actually like it before I allowed myself to invest in anything more expensive as far as equipment was concerned. And even then, this is a hot tip. Now, I know not everyone's going to agree with this, and that is perfectly okay, but this is what I did. I didn't want to cripple my family with a hobby, and I was not willing to go into debt to do this, to make soap. I just wasn't. And I had so many people tell me, you're not going to get ahead unless you take out a $10,000 loan. You're not going to be able to compete with the big suppliers. And I'm like, that's not my goal. My goal isn't to compete with the big suppliers. My goal is to do something that I love and share it with people that are interested in following the journey. And so it's never been my goal to be, you know, the biggest soap maker in the world or anything like that, but just doing something that I genuinely love. And it's a source of stress relief for me. So I have leveled up as far as equipment and things as I have had the money, as I have had the resources. I saved for 4 months to buy my first soap cutter, and then it was like a year later that I got a bigger soap cutter that was more efficient for what I was doing. So do not despise humble beginnings. If you are starting off and you're like, I just, you know, I'm not very good and I don't have the best stuff, or I just, we're so hard on ourselves. And we think we can't get ahead unless all of these variables are in place. And that's just not true. And we count ourselves out of something before we even begin. And so that's my little pep talk for you for today. I share a lot of stuff on my Facebook page that I try to just share parts of my journey that most makers, I don't know if they would or not. Some of them do, but I just want to be real and inspire and encourage people to, you know, do the best for where they're at. Start where you're at, use what you have, and then expand as you're able. And that's so satisfying. I can't tell you the amount of pride and excitement I had in ordering my larger multi-bar cutter. I mean, I was crying. It was just so exciting. And I still have the box that it came in I use it to insulate my soaps after I've poured them, because it fits them perfectly. It fits these molds perfectly. Okay, and this silicone does grab on, because there's obviously silicone on the bottom. This purple in here is silicone, and I try to get these straight, okay? It's not going to be a huge deal. You can cut them, you know, alter the cut if you need to, but I do try to get them as straight in this mold as I can, just to make it easier when I do cut, because I'm not very good cutting by hand. It's a struggle for me, so the more help I can give myself, the better. Alright, so here's that blue that I poured the mica. The amount of mica that I put in here was a teaspoon and a half, and the titanium dioxide amount that I put in the white portion was 1/8 of a teaspoon. I dispersed both the mica and the titanium dioxide in water. Hot, hot, hot water. As hot as I could stand it, or as hot as I could get it. That really helps with clumping, especially with the titanium dioxide. Alright, so I can feel the soap beginning to warm up, even more than it was when I started, before I started. So it's probably starting to go through gel phase. It's probably going to thicken up pretty quick here. I try to get this base soap into the mold before it reaches a thick or heavy trace, because it's really hard. I did have one batch seize up on me, and that was really hard to work with. So I'm just going to stir this by hand. I do think this fragrance oil behaves fairly well, but I just want to make sure, that I'm not causing problems here. All right, that smells divine. I do try to gel all of my soaps. It's just my thing. I don't try to prevent gelling, because I have personally experienced it to be a good thing, unless there's something chemically wrong, which has happened as well. But see, this is going to be a nice flat pour, as opposed to if it was a thick trace, I'd have to sit here and texture that top. And this top is actually going to be the bottom of the soap when I cut it, because that base relief, that image, is going to be the top of the soap. And so these are not going to be perfectly the same size, perfectly the same shape. That's part of the beauty of handmade. But you can, especially with time and practice, get these to where they are basically the same amount in each. You can tell they're basically the same amount in each loaf. So I'm just going to cover these to insulate them, and I'm going to come back in probably about 6 hours, because they will go through a toasty gel phase. It started already. And I find that if I wait too long, because of the amount of hard oils and butters, it's going to be too hard to cut if you wait a full 24 hours. I don't want these breaking into pieces. I want them to be full solid bars. So I check on them. If you're unsure, always check. You know your recipe best. You know your climate best. You know your fragrance oils that you use best. So go on your own judgment, but that's personally what I do. And I do wear gloves when I cut these, because it's not a full 24 hours, and the saponification process, it's honestly, people argue about how long it takes for the saponification process to happen. I just don't ever want to mess with the possibility of having lye burns, so I'm gonna wear gloves when I cut this. But I'll be back to show you the cuts. Alright guys, I'm back with my soaps. They're still warm, but they're coming out of the mold really easily. That's one indication to me that a soap is worth looking into whether it's ready to unmold or not, is if it comes out of this box easily. If it does, it's probably ready to unmold. If it's stuck and it just will not come out, it usually just means because as things expand, they get warm, they expand, right? And as they start to cool down, they'll contract again. And it expands into this box through gel phase. As it starts to cool down, it hardens and it gets more dense. And see, we're getting into all kinds of science here. I'm not even a real big science person, but you know, science is everywhere. All right, it is a bit tricky unmolding these. If you do it too soon, you will squish your soap. It has to be ready. I did squish it a little bit here. You can see just a little bit there. But then, ta-da! It is beautiful. This is my favorite moment with these particular molds, these mats. And then I have just a little thing here. I don't even know what this is. It came with, I have specific containers that I use for my fragrance oil, and this came with it. It's really a barista tool. But I use it for my soap making. Another tip to make your soap making life easier: wash out your silicone liners right away and then store them inside the box so they don't get malshapen. Malshapen, is that a word? If it's not, it is now, because I just said it. Here we go. Misshapen is the proper word. Misshapen. All right. Here we go. I love this color. It's gorgeous. I'm curious to see what it will do with the cure, because it does have vanillin in it. Okay, isopropyl alcohol, 99%. I think it's 99%. 99%. I got these 12 of them a few years ago on Amazon, and I'm still working through them. So it's a good thing to have. The higher percent of alcohol, the better. The higher percent. I don't know if it's actually higher percent alcohol or if it's a higher percent, what it's a higher percent of. But anyways, here we go. So there's a couple things you could do. You could leave it like this if you want to. You could bevel these edges. You could cut down this slice and cut down this slice so it's just the image. What I'm going to do is I'm going to break this off on all of them because I want a larger bar. I want a larger bar. So I'll go like this. And then I will take a veggie peeler and bevel these. I'll show you that in a minute. But I'm going to finish cutting these. So I just have the largest non-serrated knife that I own, and I use that. And you want to just push straight down. You don't want to wobble. You don't want to saw at it. You just want to push straight down. And then here's this one. That smell is gorgeous. It's such a lovely, lovely combination. My preferred fragrance oil company is the Midwest Fragrance Company. But I had some of that Three Wise Men from Nurture Soap. And so I thought, you know, I'm gonna mix it. And it's a really beautiful blend. It's not a traditional blend, but it works. It works beautifully together. There's something very comforting about this scent blend. My typical bars of soap are 4.5 ounces. A typical commercially made bar. We used to buy Irish Springs all the time. That was the thing we would get. And that, I'll have to check how many ounces that is, and I'll actually stick it in when I'm editing here. But I know my bars of soap, my typical bars of soap are a lot bigger than that. And then these are even bigger. Like some of these are between 7 and 8 ounces. So they are quite large. And these impression mats, I don't even think I said where I got them. So there is a lovely lady who makes these from Russia. And she has a private Facebook group that she shares all of her creations. And that is how I got mine. And that's how you order. You order through her directly through her Facebook group. So, there. I had seen soaps like this on Pinterest, and come to find out I did look and they were hers. But I saw them, I think, last Christmas, and I was like, I want that. I want that in my life. And I was so fortunate to stumble across her information this summer and be able to order in time for Christmas making. So I'll be right back. All right, so what I'm going to do now is with all of my soaps, I put my label or signature on it, if you will. And that's my Blue Haven Soapery stamp. This is still fairly soft, so I'm able to stamp it right in there to the side fairly easy. And this stamp I got on Amazon. I didn't really want anything super fancy, so it really just depends. If you're wanting to get something that has your name on it as a soaper, you can get them quite efficiently, affordably on Amazon. And then I also have ordered from Etsy for a custom stamp. Like, this is a custom stamp, but it was highly customized because I had a custom order that wanted a very specific logo. And there are so many people on Etsy that you can order super highly customized logo stamps. It just depends on what aesthetic you're going for. But there are so many different options out there, which is really cool. You're able to make something that is totally customized, totally personal to you and what look you are going for, and that fits your brand and your budget. And I love this too. No matter where you're at today, you can grow from here. You have permission to grow. And it may not be tomorrow, it may not be next week, it may not be next month, but you will get to where you want to go if you keep working. When I first started making soap, I was so frustrated because there was so much information to take in, and I didn't know how to cram my brain any fuller than it already was. But I knew that this is something that I loved. I had fallen in love with soap making. And so I just took it one day at a time and tried to work on what currently I was working on. And if that was researching what castor oil does, or researching what olive oil does, the different properties of the different oils, I tried not to take too much in at once, because if you do that, you fritz. Your brain is not capable of taking in all of science at once. You need to take it one little bite at a time. It's the age-old proverb, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And that is soap making. Soap making is a process. It is not something that happens overnight. When people tell me they want to learn how to make soap, and they're like, please teach me, and I'm like, you're gonna have to realize this is going to be a journey. This is not something that you just get It's not you go through the drive-through and say, I'd like soap making skills, please. Can you serve it up on a silver platter? No, it's going to take time. It's going to take work, more work than you possibly could have imagined, but it will be so worth it if it is something that you love. It will be so, so worth every moment of time studying and trying and failing. And failing is just as important, if not more so, than succeeding. Because failure will teach you something that success never will. It will teach you how to troubleshoot. It will teach you about yourself. It will teach you about patience. It will teach you about other people. And just so many valuable lessons. All right, well, here are all my little shards that I'll use later for a different project. Here are my 3 wise men. Here is my snowy cottage. Here is my little girl skater with a little bunny in her pocket. My daughter pointed that out to me because I hadn't seen that in my first few batches of this kind, and there's this sweet little bunny. So that's a cute little detail on there. These are so highly detailed. I highly encourage you. I will put her name, it's Elena Netachina, but I will put her name in the comments, and you can go and check out her Facebook group. It is a private Facebook group, and it's just so lovely. If you're a maker and looking for something, she has so many different designs, and they're absolutely beautiful. She makes them herself and blesses the world with her creativity. And I just wanted to share this with you guys, a little bit more information, a little bit more detail of how to make these gorgeous soaps. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope this has been informative, and I'll catch you again next time.